before the noise of the world reaches your ears, before distractions compete for your attention, before worry tries to claim the throne of your mind, you must decide how this day will be governed. Every day is a gift, but not every influence deserves access to it. Some things don't attack you loudly. They drain you quietly. They don't break you instantly. They weaken you slowly. And if you don't cut them off, they will steal the strength God intended you to walk in today. This morning, we declare something powerful. We will not begin this day carrying what God never assigned us to carry. There are conversations that exhaust your spirit. There are habits that look harmless but slowly kill momentum. There are thoughts that replay fear, failure, and doubt on repeat. And there are relationships that keep pulling you backward while God is calling you forward. Not everything that feels familiar is good for you. Not everything you're used to is meant to stay. Some doors must be closed so new strength can enter. When you wake up in the morning, you are stepping onto a battlefield of focus. Whatever controls your mind will control your direction. Whatever drains your peace will weaken your purpose. And whatever competes with God's voice will confuse your decisions. That's why this morning prayer matters. Today we ask for clarity. Clarity to recognize what is draining us. Courage to disconnect from it. And wisdom to replace it with what restores us. Cut off the negative self-talk that tells you you're not enough. Cut off the guilt from yesterday that God already forgave. Cut off the comparison that steals your joy. Cut off the fear that keeps you stuck in place. You cannot pour into your assignment if your cup is constantly leaking. This morning, we choose discipline over distraction. We choose peace over pressure. We choose obedience over convenience. We choose alignment over attachment. When God is first, everything else finds its proper place. But when God is crowded out, everything becomes heavy. So today, don't just pray, realign, don't just hope, decide, don't just survive, stand strong. Begin your day by cutting off what drains you. And watch how your strength returns, your focus sharpens, and your purpose moves forward with power. Before your feet touch the floor, something is already trying to touch your mind. Anxiety doesn't wait for permission. It rushes in with reminders of unfinished tasks, unresolved problems, and imagined outcomes that haven't even happened yet. That's why the first moments of your day are not neutral territory. They are a battleground. If you don't take authority early, worry will gladly volunteer to lead. And once anxiety takes the lead, it doesn't just affect your mood. It shapes your decisions, drains your energy, and distorts your vision for the rest of the day. Many people don't start their mornings. They survive them. They wake up already tired, already pressured, already behind. Not because the day has done anything to them yet, but because their mind was allowed to run unchecked. Anxiety loves unguarded mornings. It thrives when you reach for your phone before you reach for clarity, when notifications speak before truth does, when the noise of the world is louder than the voice guiding your life. Here's the hook. Whatever speaks first in your day often speaks loudest all day. If fear is first, fear will lead. If pressure is first, pressure will dominate. But if authority is first, everything else must fall in line. Authority means you decide how this day will go before circumstances try to decide for you. It means you don't ask the day what it's bringing. You declare what you're bringing into it. Starting your day with authority doesn't mean you won't face challenges. It means challenges won't face an unprepared mind. There's a difference between walking into a storm panicking and walking into it anchored. Anxiety reacts. Authority responds. Anxiety imagines the worst. Authority stands on what is already settled. When you wake up and immediately surrender control to worry, you give power to things you were never meant to carry. Another hook, anxiety is loud, but it's not wise. It talks fast exaggerates threats, and rushes you into decisions you later regret. Authority, on the other hand, is calm, grounded, and deliberate. It doesn't deny reality, but it refuses to be ruled by it. When you begin your day in authority, you remind your mind who is in charge. You don't chase peace later. You establish it now. Most anxiety in the morning comes from trying to control outcomes instead of committing to obedience. You're worrying about how everything will work out, who will say what might go wrong, and how you'll handle it if it does. Authority says, I will focus on what I can control, my attitude, my choices, my faith, and trust the rest to unfold as it should. Anxiety says, if I don't think about it constantly, everything will fall apart. That's a lie that keeps people mentally exhausted before noon. Here's another hook. Peace is not the absence of problems. It's the presence of order. And order starts in the mind. When you wake up and intentionally set your thoughts, you are putting your inner world in alignment. You're saying, today my emotions will not drive me. My fears will not dominate me. My past will not define this moment. That's authority. Authority in the morning looks like discipline before distraction. It looks like pausing before scrolling. It looks like breathing before reacting. It looks like reminding yourself that yesterday's failures don't get a vote in today's decisions. Anxiety wants you rushed. Authority wants you rooted. Anxiety pulls you into the future too quickly. Authority keeps you grounded in the present with confidence. Many people think authority is loud declarations, but real authority is quiet confidence. It's the steady assurance that you don't have to prove anything today. You don't have to impress everyone. You don't have to fix everything at once. When authority leads, your pace changes. You move with intention instead of impulse. You respond instead of react. You listen instead of panic. Another hook. If you don't manage your morning will manage you. And once anxiety manages you early, it will demand more attention as the day goes on. That's why small moments of intentional focus at the start can prevent massive emotional overload later. Authority at dawn saves you from regret at dusk. When you start your day with authority, you give your mind permission to rest even while you work. You don't carry unnecessary weight. You don't borrow tomorrow's worries. You don't rehearse failure. You walk forward knowing that you are not alone, not unprepared, and not powerless. Anxiety may knock, but authority decides whether the door opens. Some things don't destroy you all at once. They wear you down quietly. They don't announce their presence with chaos or crisis. They slip into your routine, settle into your habits, and slowly drain your strength until one day you feel tired for no clear reason. That's why the danger isn't always what hurts you loudly. It's what exhausts you consistently. If you don't identify what drains you early, you will keep losing energy to battles you don't even realize you're fighting. Here's the hook. You can't fix what you refuse to recognize. Many people pray for strength without ever addressing what's stealing it. They ask for motivation while staying connected to the very things that sap their drive. They wonder why they feel empty, unfocused, and overwhelmed, yet they never pause long enough to examine the leaks in their life. Draining influences don't need permission to stay. They survive on neglect. Drains often disguise themselves as normal, a habit you've accepted, a conversation you've tolerated, a routine you've outgrown, a thought pattern that feels familiar. Just because something is common doesn't mean it's healthy. Just because you've lived with it for a long time doesn't mean it's harmless. Some drains don't push you backward. They keep you from moving forward, and that makes them harder to detect. Another hook. Exhaustion is often a signal, not a weakness. Your tiredness may be trying to tell you something. Not every form of fatigue comes from doing too much. Some comes from carrying what you were never meant to carry. Emotional drains, mental drains, and spiritual drains all stack on top of each other, and by the time you notice the weight, you're already depleted. One of the most dangerous drains is unresolved thought patterns. Thoughts that replay past mistakes. Thoughts that constantly question your worth. Thoughts that anticipate failure before effort even begins. These thoughts don't scream, they whisper. And because they whisper, you start to believe they're your own voice. But repetition does not equal truth. A lie repeated daily can feel like reality if it's never challenged. Here's another hook. What drains you repeatedly will eventually define you if left unchecked. You become irritable because your energy is low. You lose patience because your reserves are empty. You start avoiding purpose because you don't feel strong enough to pursue it. All the while, the real issue isn't lack of ability, it's constant leakage. Drains can also come from people. Not everyone who smiles with you strengthens you. Some interactions leave you heavier than before. Some conversations always revolve around negativity, complaints, and discouragement. You walk away from them more tired than when you arrived. And yet, because there's no obvious conflict, you keep allowing access. Identifying draining relationships doesn't mean labeling people as bad. It means being honest about how certain connections affect your energy and focus. Another hook, loyalty without wisdom becomes self-sabotage. Staying connected to what drains you out of habit or guilt slowly erodes your capacity. You can care without carrying. You can love without allowing constant depletion. If every interaction leaves you emotionally exhausted, that's not coincidence, it's information. Drains also hide in distractions. Endless scrolling, constant noise, never-ending input with no time for reflection. Your mind was not designed to process everything all the time. Overstimulation drains clarity. It fragments focus. It leaves you mentally busy but spiritually empty. You may feel productive, but you're not replenished. Here's another hook. If your life feels crowded, it's harder to notice what's draining you because everything feels draining. That's why identification requires stillness. You can't recognize leaks while you're constantly running. Slowing down reveals patterns. Silence exposes sources. Awareness precedes change. Some drains come from internal pressure. The need to please everyone. The fear of disappointing others. The habit of saying yes when you should say no. This kind of drain doesn't look harmful because it's often praised as responsibility or kindness. But over time, it robs you of joy and strength. You were not meant to meet every demand placed on you. Another hook. Burnout is often the result of unexamined obedience to expectations that were never assigned to you. When you don't identify what drains you, you confuse exhaustion with purpose and sacrifice with calling. Discernment helps you separate what matters from what merely consumes. Identification requires honesty without excuses. It requires asking hard questions. What leaves me depleted? What consistently disrupts my peace? What steals my focus without adding value? These questions are uncomfortable, but avoidance is far more costly. Awareness may sting at first, but it prevents long-term damage. When you identify the drain, you regain power. You stop blaming yourself for feeling weak and start addressing the real issue. You realize your strength isn't gone. It's been leaking. And once a leak is exposed, it can no longer hide behind familiarity or routine. Peace is not fragile, but it is selective. It does not survive in every environment, and it does not coexist with everything you allow into your life. Many people think peace disappears on its own, when in reality it is pushed out by competition. Every time something argues for control over your thoughts, emotions, or decisions, peace is forced to fight for space. If you don't protect it, it will be crowded out by noise, pressure, and unnecessary battles. Here's the hook. Peace doesn't leave you. You abandon it by tolerating what constantly disturbs it. You don't wake up one morning without peace. You slowly give it away through small compromises. A conversation here, a habit there, an attachment that feels harmless but keeps stirring your emotions. Over time, peace becomes a visitor instead of a resident. Anything that competes with your peace is asking for more authority in your life than it deserves. See, competition doesn't always look aggressive. Sometimes it looks like constant worry. Sometimes it looks like replaying conversations long after they end. Sometimes it looks like checking the same source of stress over and over again, hoping it will change. Peace cannot thrive where obsession lives. Another hook: if something controls your emotions, it controls you. When your mood rises and falls based on external triggers, your inner world is being governed from the outside. Cutting off what competes with your peace is not about denial, it's about governance. You decide what gets access to your mind, your time, and your emotional energy. Many people confuse peace with avoidance, but peace is actually clarity. Avoidance runs from problems. Peace faces them without panic. When you allow constant emotional triggers to stay in your life, you don't become stronger. You become reactive. Every notification, every comment, every reminder pulls you off balance. Over time, you live in a state of tension that feels normal only because you've forgotten what calm feels like. Here's another hook. Constant agitation is not a sign of productivity, it's a sign of misalignment. Being busy doesn't mean being purposeful. Being emotionally engaged with everything doesn't mean everything deserves your engagement. Peace requires boundaries, and boundaries require courage. Cutting off what competes with your peace often means disappointing people. It means saying no without over-explaining. It means stepping back from situations that thrive on drama or pressure. And guilt will try to follow you when you do. Guilt will whisper that you're being selfish, unkind, or weak. But protecting your peace is not selfish. It's stewardship. Another hook: you cannot build anything meaningful while constantly defending your emotional territory. If every day feels like emotional warfare, you won't have NA. RGY, left for growth. Peace is not a luxury, it's fuel. Without it, even good opportunities feel heavy. Competition with peace also comes from internal voices. The voice that demands perfection. The voice that never lets you rest. The voice that tells you one mistake defines everything. These inner pressures keep peace at a distance. When your mind is always on trial, peace has no place to sit. Cutting off these voices requires replacing them with truth, discipline, and grace. Here's another hook. Peace doesn't argue, it withdraws. When chaos enters, peace doesn't fight for attention, it steps back. That's why you must be intentional. If you don't actively choose peace, you will passively inherit stress. Stress is the default of an unmanaged mind. Some things compete with peace by promising control. Overthinking convinces you that if you analyze every angle, you'll feel safer. But the more you think, the less peace you have. Control feels secure, but it is exhausting. Peace comes from trust, not from constant mental labor. Another hook: peace grows where trust is planted. When you refuse to trust, you force yourself to manage everything, and management without rest leads to burnout. Cutting off what competes with your peace often means releasing the illusion that you must hold everything together. Peace also competes with unresolved conflict. Lingering resentment, unspoken frustration, and bottled up emotions quietly sabotage your inner calm. You may function on the outside, but inside there is tension. Ignoring conflict doesn't preserve peace. It postpones healing. True peace requires courage to address what's been draining your emotional stability. Here's another hook unresolved. Tension doesn't stay contained. It leaks into every area of your life. It affects your tone, your patience, and your perspective. Cutting off what competes with peace sometimes means confronting what you've been avoiding, not to create chaos, but to restore order. When you choose peace, you are choosing focus over frenzy. You are choosing depth over drama. You are choosing direction over distraction. And every choice you make either strengthens peace or weakens it. The question is not whether peace is available, but whether you are willing to remove what keeps challenging its place in your life. Distraction never announces itself as dangerous. It arrives looking harmless, even helpful. It promises relief, entertainment, information, connection, but while it gives a little pleasure, it quietly steals a lot of power. Focus, on the other hand, doesn't shout. It waits to be chosen. And the difference between a drained life and a directed life is not talent, opportunity, or effort. It's what you allow to hold your attention. Here's the hook. Whatever you focus on, you empower. Attention is currency. You are always paying something with it, whether you realize it or not. When your attention is scattered, your strength is scattered. When your attention is disciplined, your life begins to move with intention. Distractions don't just waste time, they dilute purpose. Many people think they need more motivation when what they really need is fewer distractions. They're not lazy, they're overloaded. Their minds are constantly switching, constantly reacting, constantly consuming. And when everything is coming in, nothing meaningful is being built. You cannot live a focused life while feeding on constant noise. Another hook, distraction feels light in the moment, but heavy over time. A few minutes turn into hours. A quick check turns into mental fatigue. You walk away feeling busy but unfulfilled. Focus may feel demanding at first, but it produces clarity, progress, and peace. One steals energy slowly, the other multiplies it steadily. Replacing distractions way. Focus doesn't mean removing everything enjoyable. It means prioritizing what is life-giving. Focus asks hard questions. Why am I giving my attention to this? What is this adding to my life? Is this strengthening me or simply stimulating me? Stimulation excites the senses. Focus strengthens the soul. Here's another hook. A distracted mind is always reacting, but a focused mind is always building. Reaction keeps you busy responding to whatever appears next. Focus keeps you anchored to what matters most. Without focus, even good intentions drift. With focus, small efforts compound into meaningful change. Distractions thrive where boundaries are weak. Endless input leaves no room for depth. Constant updates leave no space for reflection. When you never disconnect, you never recharge. Focus requires intentional limits on noise, on access, on information. Not everything deserves immediate attention, and not everything needs a response. Another hook. Just because something is accessible doesn't mean it's valuable. You can have unlimited access to information and still lack wisdom. You can be constantly connected and still feel disconnected from purpose. Focus filters what enters your mind so that what stays can actually grow. Replacing distractions with focus also means choosing discipline over impulse. Impulse reacts to what feels good now. Discipline chooses what will matter later. Impulse says just this once. Discipline says not everything deserves me. Every focused decision strengthens your ability to choose again tomorrow. Focus isn't about intensity alone. It's about alignment. When your actions align with your values, focus becomes natural. Distractions lose their appeal when your purpose is clear. Confusion invites distraction. Clarity repels it. That's why focus begins with knowing what truly matters to you. Here's another hook. When purpose is unclear, distraction becomes attractive. If you don't know where you're going, anything can pull you. Focus sharpens when direction is defined. Direction gives your attention somewhere to land instead of endlessly wandering. Distractions also mask discomfort. Silence exposes thoughts you've been avoiding. Stillness forces reflection. That's why distraction feels comforting. It keeps you from facing inner work. But growth requires presence. You cannot heal, build, or transform what you constantly avoid. Another hook, what you avoid today will demand your attention tomorrow. Distraction delays growth, but it never cancels the need for it. Focus may feel uncomfortable at first, but it leads to freedom. Avoidance feels easy, but it creates pressure over time. Replacing distractions with focus means creating daily moments of intentional engagement. Time where your mind is not split, where your attention is not divided, where you are fully present with what you're doing. In those moments, creativity returns, clarity sharpens, energy stabilizes, focus also restores peace. A distracted mind is restless. A focused mind is settled. When you give your full attention to one thing at a time, your nervous system calms. You stop rushing internally, even if the world around you is moving fast. Focus slows the chaos inside. Another hook, multitasking is not strength, it's fragmentation. Doing many things poorly drains you faster than doing one thing well. Focus conserves energy by directing it instead of scattering it. And where energy is directed, results begin to appear. Replacing distractions with focus is a daily decision, not a one-time change. Every day presents choices. Every moment offers a direction. And with each decision to focus, you reclaim a piece of your strength, your clarity, and your sense of purpose. Attachment often disguises itself as loyalty, comfort, or history. It convinces you that holding on is a virtue, even when what you're holding on to is holding you back. Many people remain stuck, not because they lack opportunity, but because they are emotionally attached to what feels safe. Alignment, however, doesn't ask what feels familiar, it asks what moves you forward. Here's the hook. Just because something has been with you for a long time doesn't mean it's meant to go with you any further. Time invested is not proof of future value. Growth demands honesty, and honesty often reveals that some attachments no longer fit who you're becoming. Attachment clings to identity based on the past. Alignment points toward purpose rooted in the present. When you choose attachment, you preserve comfort. When you choose alignment, you pursue clarity. And clarity often requires release. You cannot fully align with where you're called to go while dragging what belongs to where you've been. Another hook. Attachment keeps you explaining. Alignment keeps you moving. When you're attached, you feel the need to justify why you stay, why you tolerate, why you settle. Alignment removes the need for explanation because direction becomes more important than approval. You stop asking for permission to grow. Many attachments are emotional, not logical. They live in memories, expectations, and fear of loss. Fear whispers that letting go will leave you empty, but alignment reveals that release makes room. You don't lose yourself when you let go of what no longer fits. You find yourself again. Here's another hook. Attachment feels like love, but sometimes it's just fear wearing a familiar face. Fear of being alone, fear of disappointing others, fear of starting over. Alignment doesn't ignore fear, it refuses to be ruled by it. It acknowledges the discomfort of change while choosing truth over convenience. Attachment keeps you in environments that drain you. Alignment places you where you can grow. You can't thrive in spaces that constantly conflict with your values. If you're always adjusting who you are to fit in, that's not belonging. That's compromise. Alignment invites you to stand where your values don't have to be defended. Another hook. Fitting in costs more than standing out when it pulls you away from who you're meant to be. Attachment prioritizes acceptance. Alignment prioritizes integrity. Integrity doesn't guarantee ease, but it ensures peace. Attachment also affects decisions. You choose based on what you might lose instead of what you might gain. You stay because it's predictable. You delay because it's familiar. Alignment shifts the question from what will happen if I let go to what will happen if I don't. That question exposes the true cost of attachment. Here's another hook. The price of staying attached is often higher than the risk of letting go. You pay with time. You pay with energy. You pay with missed opportunities. Alignment may feel risky, but stagnation is guaranteed when attachment leads. Choosing alignment means evaluating your commitments. Not every obligation is an assignment. Not every responsibility is yours to carry. Attachment says yes out of habit. Alignment says yes out of purpose. And when purpose leads, your energy follows. Another hook. Saying no to what misaligns you is saying yes to what strengthens you. Boundaries are not rejection, they are direction. They clarify where you are headed and what cannot come along. Attachment often demands loyalty to people, roles, or versions of yourself that no longer serve your growth. Alignment honors the journey without being trapped by it. You can appreciate where you've been without living there. Gratitude doesn't require permanence. Here's another hook. Alignment doesn't erase your past. It redeems it by building on what matters and releasing what doesn't. You don't dishonor history by moving forward. You honor it by growing beyond it. Alignment also sharpens discernment. You become more aware of what resonates and what resists. Things that once felt normal begin to feel heavy. That's not confusion, it's clarity. Your inner compass is adjusting. Attachment resists this shift. It calls clarity change and labels it dangerous. But alignment understands that growth always involves transition. Comfort zones feel safe because they're known, not because they're good. Another hook. Comfort zones don't protect you, they preserve patterns. And patterns that no longer align will eventually produce frustration. Alignment breaks cycles that attachment keeps repeating. Choosing alignment over attachment is not an emotional decision. It's a directional one. It's deciding that who you are becoming matters more than who you've been. It's choosing progress over nostalgia, purpose over familiarity, truth over ease. Intentions feel powerful, but they don't move anything by themselves. They sound good, they comfort the mind, and they create the illusion of progress without demanding change. Action, however, tells the truth. It reveals what you really believe, what you really value, and what you're truly committed to. The distance between where you are and where you want to be is not filled with promises. It's filled with steps. Here's the hook. Delay is the most polite form of disobedience to purpose. It doesn't shout no, it whispers later, and later slowly turns into never. Many people don't fail because they lack desire. They fail because they keep postponing obedience. They plan, they prepare, they think, they wait, while opportunity quietly passes by. Immediate action interrupts fear. Fear grows in stillness. The longer you sit with a decision, the louder doubt becomes. Doubt feeds on delay. It multiple. IES questions, exaggerates risks, and shrinks confidence. Action-starved doubt. The moment you move, fear loses leverage. You may still feel afraid, but fear is no longer in control. Another hook. Clarity doesn't come before action, it follows it. Many people wait to feel ready before they move, but readiness is often a byproduct of motion. You don't gain confidence by thinking about change, you gain it by stepping into it. Action reveals strength you didn't know you had. Delayed intentions create emotional fatigue. You keep carrying ideas, goals, and convictions that never find expression. Over time, this creates frustration, guilt, and self-doubt. You begin questioning your ability when the real issue is hesitation. Action releases pressure. It turns mental weight into forward momentum. Here's another hook. Unfinished decisions drain more energy than difficult actions. Making a hard move once costs less than avoiding it every day. When you act, you free your mind from endless internal debate. Even imperfect action brings relief because it breaks the cycle of stagnation. Immediate action also builds discipline. Discipline is not formed by motivation, it's formed by consistency. Every time you act despite discomfort, you strengthen your ability to act again. Small actions create a pattern, and patterns create identity. You become someone who moves, not someone who postpones. Another hook, momentum favors the brave, not the perfect. Waiting for ideal conditions keeps you stuck in idealized fantasies. Action works with reality. It adapts, adjusts, and progresses. Perfectionism delays. Progression advances. Delayed intentions often hide behind logic. You convince yourself you need more time, more information, more confirmation. But wisdom doesn't demand endless analysis. It demands obedience to what you already know. When you ignore what's clear, no amount of extra information will help. Here's another hook. What you tolerate delaying today will control you tomorrow. Delay becomes habit. Habit becomes identity, and identity shapes destiny. Immediate action breaks that chain before it hardens. Action also clarifies priorities. When you move, you quickly discover what matters and what doesn't. Distractions lose power when you're actively engaged. Excuses shrink when commitment grows. Action simplifies life by forcing choices instead of allowing endless options. Another hook, motion exposes resistance. When you act, whatever truly opposes you reveals itself. Internal fears surface. External obstacles appear. But exposure is not defeat, it's information. You can't confront what stays hidden. Action turns invisible barriers into visible challenges. Immediate action doesn't mean reckless movement, it means decisive movement. It means taking the next right step, not mapping the entire journey. Progress happens one step at a time, not one perfect plan at a time. Obedience to the next step unlocks the next instruction. Here's another hook. Hesitation keeps you negotiating with comfort. Action ends the negotiation. Once you move, the argument is over. Comfort no longer gets a vote. Purpose takes the lead. Delayed intentions also weaken trust in yourself. Every time you say, I'll do it later. And don't, your confidence erodes. You stop believing your own commitments. Action restores self-trust. Each fulfilled decision reinforces your belief that you can follow through. Another hook. Self-respect grows where action lives. You don't respect yourself for what you plan. You respect yourself for what you do. Action aligns words with behavior, and alignment strengthens identity. Immediate action turns belief into evidence. Faith without movement remains abstract, but when belief is acted upon, it becomes visible. Even small actions testify to big convictions. Movement gives substance to what you say you believe. Delay keeps potential theoretical. Action makes it tangible. Delay protects you from risk. Action exposes you to growth. Delay keeps you safe. Action makes you strong. Every moment you wait, something else takes your place. Fear, distraction, or comfort. Immediate action ensures that purpose gets there first.